Happy Monday, everybody. Today's topic that I wanted to cover is how our traumas, large or small, whether it's in our past, our childhood past, or recent past, lead to self-sabotage in business. And how to recognize it, and a few tips on overcoming it. First, let's talk a little bit about the traumas. Trauma could be either a large trauma, very traumatic event that could be an accident, it could be a sexual abusive type of trauma, it could be something repeated over a long period of time in childhood, or it could be something as simple as, a teacher as a child told you that you didn't know how to draw and you had crappy drawing, and that can affect your creativity and your willingness to step out of the box as you get older. It could be, a trusted mentor or even a not trusted boss. It could be a toxic boss criticized you in a certain way that made you doubt yourself. So that is, the traumas could be repeated traumas, just like you're really stressed out over your job, and over a period of time you feel like you can't get everything done that you want to get done, and you start to feel shame and guilt over that. So trauma can encapsulate a lot of different things, and the response over time builds into a habit that can hold you back. And a lot of times that habit turns into self-sabotage. So let's talk about the ways that you can recognize self-sabotage in your life, particularly as it relates to your job or your business. One of the most common ways that self-sabotage can show up is through procrastination. So let's, take a look at procrastination. It is where you are holding back, and maybe if you really analyze, like sit and thought about it, it's a fear of moving forward. So if you don't move forward, if you just stay still, you're not taking any risk, you're not being seen, you're not being rejected, you're just holding back. So that's one of the big ways people self-sabotage and throughout their life, but particularly in business, where they procrastinate and they don't do tasks. You might tell yourself that the reason I'm not doing this task is because it makes me feel icky. I'm not good at it. Or it could be that you just don't like the task and you're like, I don't like to do it, so I'm not going to do it. A lot of times these tasks might be around money. It might be about doing budgeting. It might be about doing your costing at work. Maybe you have to turn in some receipts or something like that. So if it's revolving around money, it could be asking for a raise. It could be around that. It could be asking for some time off. You could be procrastinating about that. Sometimes when we're procrastinating around our finances and around money, it could be an issue. It might be showing you that you could use some help with your self-worth. If you, for whatever reason, don't feel worthy of love, you don't feel worthy of money, you don't feel worthy of attention, it could cause you to procrastinate and pull back. So, it's important to work through those areas to determine the underlying cause. If it's a self-worth issue, where is that coming from? Is that coming often? It could be coming from something recent, but often it's coming from a childhood memory or a childhood trauma, which as an adult doesn't look traumatic. Maybe, and it could be just your take on things as a child, not the event as it actually was, but your childhood perception of an event. I'll give a for instance. Say you are a young child who's maybe just learning how to talk. You're toddling around at around 2 or 3, and your mother's friend is going through a horrible breakup. So your mom's on the phone with his friend a lot. She's on the phone with her friend and she's ignoring you. Has nothing to do with you. Your mother's not trying to hurt you in any way. There's no abuse there. There's no real neglect. But mommy, when you come up and like, mommy, look what I drew. And mommy's like distracted, say, yeah, no, go in the other room and play. I'm on the phone. And that happens for like a week. A week's not a long time for you and me, but as a little 2-year-old, 3-year-old, you're creating a story in your head that I'm not lovable, mommy doesn't want to spend time with me, I have to do more, I have to be more creative. I'm not creative, she didn't like my drawing, so she sent me to the room. Had not, you weren't sent to your room because of anything you did, and certainly not because of your drawing. But as a young child who doesn't have lifetime experiences, that's often the internal story that you tell yourself. And if that happens periodically over your life, which it will, most likely your parents are gonna have adult things they have to deal with, where it's not being talked about, you're just being sent away, where you internalize that in a different way, where you're feeling unworthy and unloved. So even though it's not a capital T trauma, it's still in your child's eye, it's a low T trauma over a period of time that shows up in weird ways as an adult. And this is where, as an adult, you're like, it's just not rational for me to feel this way. I know logically that I should ask for a raise. That's not a big deal. I should be able to ask for a raise. But childhood you is like, but if I'm not lovable and even my own mom sent me away and didn't pay attention to me, then how am I lovable enough to ask for a raise? One doesn't have to do with the other, but that internal story that you don't realize you're telling yourself shows up that way, where it shows up as procrastination around something that is very important for you to do, but something's holding you back from doing it. So one of the things that I've learned in my life, and it's been a long, long road to learn this, is that when I am feeling resistance around something, when I'm feeling procrastination around something, or that I'm being held back, I lean into it rather than shrinking. Of course, originally that's what I want to do. I was like, just like, I want to curl into a little ball and ignore whatever's going on and just like do whatever else. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, do something that seems like it's more productive, but really it might just be busy work, to avoid looking at something that makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable and makes me kind of hold back for some reason. So the step one is to lean in to whatever makes you uncomfortable. And my internal thought process around this, to make it easier to digest for me to lean into something uncomfortable, is I relate it back to exercise or sports or something like that, some hobby or task that I developed that muscle memory around leaning into it as a good thing. For instance, in yoga, I know that concentrating and leaning into a pose that's difficult and concentrate on just the small aspects of doing it right, and how I talk to myself to get through that momentary discomfort, because I know it's going to end. How I talk to myself through that, I remember that thought process and apply it to other areas of my life. So, for instance, if I am working on budgeting, I try to lean into it and say, okay, so I know this is a temporary thing. Eventually the budgeting process is over and it'll be done and I'll feel better, more accomplished, just like you do in yoga. So I'm going to lean into that little bit of discomfort. And while I'm leaning into it, let me explore what's coming up for me. Let me be curious about what feelings are coming up around this exercise. Is it really related to the specific task at hand? Or is it something a little deeper? Is it something more that I need to work on? And then start gently, with curiosity and without judgment, start looking into that. And often this is where a coach really comes in handy, because they can help you, guide you through the process of looking at something from different perspectives. They can help coach you through practicing muscle memory around going through experiences, leaning into that experience, and they can hold your hand through it. It's not like they're holding you up, they're just supporting you through that experience, so you know, for instance, they're like the training wheels. They're like training wheels as you're learning how to go through a new process that keep you balanced a little bit more until you can take those training wheels off and just fly with it. So that is my brief discussion on how traumas large and small can lead to a habit-forming behavior that shows up in how we hold ourselves back at work, or in business, where we have a subject that we kind of pull back on, we limit ourselves on it, we have self-limiting beliefs, which can lead to self-sabotage and ultimately hold us back from the ultimate success. So if you want to learn a little bit more about whether or not you're self-sabotaging or how you can recognize it, feel free to DM me or post a comment under this video, and I will get back to you. And also, if you want to share your story or your habits of how you overcome them, I would love to hear that as well. So again, thank you for your time and your attention, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Thank you.